A new malaria medication is going to be saving kids across Africa. Some prenatal diets could be giving babies diabetes, and medical misinformation is everywhere, but we have the tools to stop it. That's just some of what we're talking about on today's 25th RX Report. We're finally old enough to rent a car. I'm your host and Man in Black, Manuel, coming to you from the home of pharmacy at the American Pharmacists Association in Washington, D.C. We've got a lot to talk about today, so be sure to click that like and subscribe button, leave a comment on anything and everything that we talk about today, and let's dive in. Our first story is a spicy one, especially for expecting parents. A new study published in the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health found that a maternal pro-inflammatory diet, think things like processed meats, sugary snacks, fried foods, and that kind of tempting I want you but I shouldn't have you kind of food, during pregnancy is linked to a significantly higher risk of type 1 diabetes in their children. That's right, pregnant people. Those late-night cravings for spicy pickles could have an evil side effect. Researchers followed over 63,000 mother-child pairs in Finland. Why Finland? Why not Finland? Expand your horizons, my friends. These Finnish folk found that the more pro-inflammatory the diet during pregnancy, the higher the odds of the child developing type 1 diabetes. The authors of the study noted that, quote, of particular note is the fact that 3 factors during mid-pregnancy, a pro-inflammatory dietary pattern, gluten, and smoking, seem to independently predict the child's risk of type 1 diabetes. This suggests that mid-pregnancy may be a critical period during which the fetus is particularly susceptible to maternal lifestyle influences in relation to the individual's latter risk for developing type 1 diabetes during childhood or adolescence. Now, before we all panic and toss our priceless sriracha bottles out the window, let's be clear, this is an association, not necessarily a causation. But it does open the door for more research and possibly more guidance in prenatal nutrition. In the meantime, my pregnant pop stars, maybe add some leafy stuff to the plate, just in case. Happy Type 1 Diabetes Awareness Week, everyone. Yes, that's the thing I promise. I hope I got the Rosie the Riveter pose right there. Now, moving on from that bummer story to a happy story, to be balanced as all things should be. Approval for the first ever malaria treatment for newborns has finally passed. A lot of you may understandably not be entirely sure what the big deal is, as malaria is not really a big, massive issue stateside. But despite being treatable and preventable, 2023 had over 263 million cases and almost 600,000 deaths, most of which happened in Africa. The worst part of that news is 76% of those deaths were made up of children under the age of 5. But thankfully, this new medication is an absolute game changer. Developed by the Swiss nonprofit Medicines for Malaria in partnership with the drug company Novartis, this treatment is made specifically for children between 2 and 5 kilograms, or 4 pounds, 6 ounces to 11 pounds for those of us who don't really speak metric. In the past, children that size have been given malaria medication for people or kids that are bigger, which oftentimes resulted in the risk of overdose or toxicity. This new drug is just the right amount for smaller kids, is dissolvable in things like breast milk, and has a nice cherry flavor. I love it when meds go the Flintstones vitamin route of making it tasty enough that you actively have to work to keep me from taking too much medicine. Now, with this approval from the Swiss government, the new drug known as Coartem Baby is slated to be distributed through various countries in Africa on a largely, quote, not-for-profit basis, according to a spokesperson for Novartis. Now, the drug is being reviewed by African countries' regulatory committees, but they are working to fast-track that approval in 90 days so that the distribution of this drug can occur as soon as possible. You love to see it. Good job, Swiss, for making malaria drugs as well as some tasty chocolate and opaque banking practices. Before our next story, a quick update. Happening Wednesday, August 6th at 1 p.m. ET, APhA and national pharmacy organizations will be hosting an all-pharmacy town hall that explores recent changes in vaccine policy and what it means for pharmacists and your community. This is a member-exclusive benefit, and membership attestation will be required upon your registration. If you aren't able to attend the live webinar, a replay and live Q&A will be presented at 7 p.m. ET on August 6th. Please note that separate registration is required for both the live webinar and the replay. Links are in the description down below. Now then for our last leading story. Follow close as I guide you through the Indiana Jones-esque jungle full of traps known as navigating medical misinformation. Though AI gets a deservedly bad rap for spreading misinformation consistently, the problem was in a bad way before ChatGPT took its first yawn that a human artist probably illustrated first, let's be honest. A recent consumer survey conducted by Headline in 2024 found that half of respondents gathered health information via social media, and 32% said they relied on people that they knew, like family and friends. Another study in the UK by the Alan Turing Institute in 2024 found that 94% of the population had been exposed to misinformation on social media. Now, on the surface, connecting with others consistently to share and receive lessons and advice can be a good thing. But that surface gets blown up by a truth bomb as soon as everyone decides that they are a health expert. From celery juice healing your aura to magnesium curing ADHD, the internet is a non-stop buffet of bad takes, hot tips, and cold, hard scams. So what do we do here when faced with an overwhelming wave of baloney information about our health? Well, have no fear, as Medical News Today had this same question and spoke with Dr. Don Holford, a PhD research fellow at the School of Psychological Science at the University of Bristol in the UK, to make a handy guide that helps you figure out what's legit and what's written by Chad from Reddit who failed high school biology. Hi, Chad. First off, it's time for some hard truths. Part of what makes us so easy to convince with false information is that generally when we are looking up medical advice for ourselves or somebody close to us, we tend to get a little anxious. Now, Dr. Holford mentions how these anxieties can make us more susceptible to persuasion by BS stories. It also doesn't help that many of us have bad experiences with existing healthcare systems and governments that have already made us skeptical. Dr. Holford explains, quote, "We would be more susceptible to disinformation that vaccines were intended as a foreign plot to sterilize people like us if we'd had previous experiences that shaped our attitude root of distrust of, say, colonial governments." So, for example, let's say you find a bump on your leg, freak out, Google it, and the first result says something close enough to what you thought it was for you to believe it. How do you combat that? Well, there are a couple of methods, but I warn you it will require you to do your homework. First off, who is the author of the article or study that you found? Are they a doctor of medicine or a doctor of English? And no shade to my English lovers. I was a comms major back when I was young and beautiful and full of hope, but I think you'd agree that people like us probably shouldn't be writing medical studies. Next up, what is the source of this study? Dr. Holford says that ironically, governmental public health organizations are often the places where information is most reliable because they are accountable to citizens in a way that other content generators would not be. So, despite your possible frustration at current world events, federal agencies may still be one of your best resources for verified, reputable source information. Finally, find separate sources from reputable outlets that report the same findings on the issue you're investigating. If only one website is saying your leg bump is a mutant appendage, but no others can corroborate that conclusion, you might need to find a different source. Again, I want to emphasize the reputable part of reputable sources. If you find, say, 10 users on Tumblr sharing memes about how the sun causes gluten allergies, you may have found a consensus, but you haven't found a reputable consensus. Please be smart, be patient, and if you still face questions, always talk to your medical provider. They know what they're talking about and sometimes even give you a sticker for being a good boy. What more could you ask for? Ultimately, the best rule is this. If it sounds too good or easy to be true, it probably is. And if it sounds way too complicated to be true, it's either wrong or someone's trying to sell you $80 detox crystals. Looking at you, Gwyneth. And that is our show. If you learned something new about kicking misinformation in the throat, then smash that like and subscribe for more stories like this. What did you think about what we talked about in today's show? Maybe drop us a comment below with your thoughts, corrections, or wild health claims that you've seen online. Seriously, I want the weirdest, craziest ones that you've been able to find. Our executive producer is Rob Hodges. Our creative producer and co-editor is Kate Erdmann. And until next time, I'm your host, Mason Manuel. We are off next week, but be sure to tune in to Future Fridays for more RX Report, where you get your health, your news delivered. But till then, bye y'all.